Here we go live. So welcome everyone to welcome everyone to Meshery Development Meeting. Today is 1st of Feb. With that, I don't think we have newcomers on today's call. So we can directly go ahead with today's topic. So we have a good list of agenda items lined up today. And I'll just share the link of meeting minutes again in chat. If you haven't written your name in attendees list, make sure you write one. So with that, first up, we have Ashish on a couple of items. So Ashish would like to go over. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, I guess the first item was taken care of. We already discussed it. I don't know if you want to discuss it again. This was about the UI changes, but I'll come back to it. So the first thing was I'd like to give a little bit of context on what I'm talking about. So we have this Meshery on meshery.io/catalog. We have this catalog of all the items. So here you have designs, and also you have wasm filters, and there is a workflow which actually adds these things over here, and that workflow is over here inside of meshery.io repository. Inside of here, there is this workflow update catalog, and it's of type repository dispatch, which basically means that there can be a post request sent to a certain endpoint. So this is basically for any trigger that exists outside of GitHub, for any external webhook, we can have this particular workflow run from outside. In our case, that outside is meshery.layer5.io, which is Meshery Cloud. So every time a user publishes a design, this particular I'll also run Meshery server alongside too, so that I can also show what it means from the UI side, what it means to click on publish and all. So when someone clicks on publish, this particular workflow kicks off, and what this particular workflow does is it goes over to meshery.layer5.io/pattern/catalog, and over here you have a bunch of as you can see, you have these catalog items. These are designs, and similarly you can go to filters/catalog. So for each of these catalog items, there is an endpoint for patterns as well as for filters, and it goes to this particular endpoint. It takes all of these designs in this case, and it publishes them over to it creates markdown and all, so that they can be published over here on the website. Okay, so that was the publish workflow. There are two parts for this publish workflow. One part is how so currently there is no we are on the way to have a whole workflow where anyone can publish, anyone can at least request to publish their designs on Meshery Cloud. Right now, only people with privileges of admin and people with privileges of curator can do that. But later on, users would be able to request for it, and there will be a queue from where the curators would be able to approve it. So that's the left part of the flow, which is to say uh, when and how someone can publish the design. What I'm talking about in this task is after that design is published, what can we do with that? Just to give you an example, I'll open the UI so I can show from where any user, in future any user, but right now only admins and curator can publish a design. So if you log in, you have to be logged in as remote provider. So if you log in as remote provider, and if you go into designs, you'll find there is this button. You can use this button to show you the catalog items or hide the catalog items. So for example, in this case, this is the catalog item, and you can, for all the private designs that you have, these are my private designs. So you can click on publish and you can fill this form. And right now, because I have the privileges of an admin, these will be directly published, but later on the user flow kick off when someone requests a publish. So after someone publishes a design, what happens is that this particular endpoint is hit, and all of these designs or filters or whatever catalog item is, they are fetched and they are added. So this is an additive change. It does not. So this is kind of this is actually edge triggered, which is to say that this workflow that I just showed you, it is triggered only when an update takes place onto an already published design, or a new published design is added. So in these two cases, this particular workflow kicks in, and it makes sure that the published design that are available on this particular endpoint are also available on here. It doesn't do it one by one, which is to say, if you add a published so the first item that was under discussion was comparing two approaches, the current approach and the latter approach. There are pros and cons to both. The current approach basically goes to all the fetches all the designs, all the published designs, and then publishes them to the catalog, and there are no duplications if the IDs don't change. The drawback is that if we have like hundreds and 200 published designs, in that case, this is not really a good approach, because if someone changes, if someone adds one more published design, it would still go and fetch for all the 200 designs and do that change. But since currently we don't have that many catalog items, it's fine if we go with that approach. If we go with that current approach, it requires less rework. The other approach would be, whenever someone adds a particular design, then that ID is passed on to this particular workflow, so that when this workflow kicks in, it actually fetches up the design of that ID, and then basically on the catalog only that design is added. There are cons to discuss. There are multiple cases where something can be missed, so I won't go over them. I'll come to the unpublished thing. So currently with the unpublished approach is, whenever a particular design is unpublished or deleted, in both the cases, we would want to delete that particular design from the Meshery.io catalog. So there is a PR up for that. And currently there was the logic wasn't pretty great previously, which is on delete and on delete, as well as there was no flow for unpublished. And even if someone deleted it, the same workflow was run, and this workflow actually does not remove any existing catalog items, due to which we had a lot of duplicates over here. So what this pull request adds is, it has it basically splits these things into two functions. One is the dispatch catalog synchronization, or dispatch catalog add. So whenever someone adds a particular design, then the original workflow kicks in. But if someone deletes or unpublishes it, then basically, if someone deletes or unpublishes any pattern or design, then the workflow is kicked with a different. So the body is different for that request. So the webhook. So this particular event type is different. So there is a sync catalog event type or add catalog. This can be changed whenever an add event or a publish event is triggered. And then there is a delete catalog event type when the particular design or particular item is deleted. And in the client payload, we'll pass the particular pattern ID or filter ID. And since the file names inside of all these files name inside of the Meshery.io repository are such that they have the UUID as the file name, we can easily find out which particular file to delete. So unpublishing will trigger a delete over here, and these files, the particular items would be deleted. So, so yeah, that was my first update about publishing and unpublishing. If someone has any questions, I can answer them, and then I can move on to the next sub point of this particular pull request or this particular change.
Ashish, I have a question for you. So as far as the numbering of the items in the catalog, where is that? Is that coming from the workflow? Because there's duplications in the numbers, and I haven't had time to look over it. So I was curious if you knew right off the top of your head where the numbering was coming from, because as far as I know, it's not dynamic.
Okay, so if you're talking about this Meshery 000
Right.
and Meshery, yeah. Okay, so these are not coming from the workflow. They do have a unique UUID, but those are not used on the UI for some reason. And I think we can get rid of this mesh. These are completely client-side things. These are not coming from, but we can still distinguish them individually, because the file names do have UUID. So if you go into this Meshery.io repository, and inside of here, you'll have catalog, and if you'll go here, you can see that the YAML file, the file names are actually the UUIDs, but these UUIDs are not shown over here. Basically the markdown that is generated in the workflow, I mean, I'm not sure about this. Maybe someone who has worked on the UI can tell me about it. But what I saw was that these Meshery 000 and Meshery 002 and 001, they are randomly added. So these do not necessarily help here to index a particular design or a particular catalog item. So we might remove them, or there might have been some logic. Basically, maybe there would have been a logic that whenever a design is added, these counts are incremented, but there is no consistency from the UI side. So yeah, yeah, that to answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ashish, we actually just talked about this last hour.
Yeah,
That those UUIDs that are, so the unique identifier for each catalog entry needs to be, some form of it needs to be referenced here. And the issue is that the UUID is terribly long and isn't very palatable by people perusing the catalog. And so Colby, thank you for bringing this up, because this is an item that you might be able to, one, figure out a solution to, and then two, implement. The data is there, like Ashish is showing, but there's probably the challenge that stands in the way, or maybe the toughest challenge, is just the UX of the thing. Like, it's kind of nice for people to, or the original thought is that it's nice for people, is that the original thought is that the catalog is supposed to contain a number of best practices, and that those best practices might be numbered, or there might be a unique reference to them, that they might come in different forms. So one of them being a pattern, one of them being like a filter, maybe configured in a certain way, or just another one being like an OPA policy or an eBPF program, and that they would each carry a small little moniker. Like for the patterns, it would be like the pattern logo of Meshery, and then some unique identifier, some number. Now, we can auto increment, like starting from 0 and kind of counting up is nice for us humans to be able to say, oh yeah, it's, number 37. Having said that, it's a lot easier programmatically for Meshery server to generate a UUID and track that as part of the unique identifier for the design. So then the conundrum is like how to make that concise, how to give, like, so if we were to just take the last suffix, or like curtail the last 5 characters or so off of the UUID, would we generally expect that to be unique enough that we could have like Meshery and then 5 characters? And B, is 5 characters enough? Is 5 characters too long for us humans to really make use of it anyway? So these are the questions sort of surrounding this.
Yeah, I was digging into it and trying to find out where it was coming from. And so that's the reason I asked Ashish is it coming from the workflow, or is it coming from the logic of, Meshery communicating with the UI, the front end? And Antoinette might have some feedback on that as well, because a lot of that is like front end stuff. So she might have some.
Yeah, actually, if you'll see on line number 71 here, this particular pattern ID is what you see over here. So Meshery 004, 00, whatever. And here you can see this is generated on the basis of this ID X variable, which is basically an iterator inside of the for loop. So if so the 6 or so these 6 particular patterns that you see over here, when this goes over each one of them, it just adds them as Meshery 001, 002, 003, 004, like that.
The tricky thing is that there's the WASM filters, then there's like several categories of patterns basically, and so I'll look into it some more, Lee.
Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah. I don't know.
Actually, so I wanted to add on to that, when you were talking about the Meshery with the ID numbers. So on each of the markdown files, there is a pattern ID that has that, and so they're all multiple with the duplicate numbers. So it's in the collection _ catalog deployment, and each of the markdown files has the pattern ID or filter ID or whatever it is, but it's defined there. So because it's already defined there, shouldn't that have already been changed through the workflow?
Yeah, that is defined. That markdown was created by the workflow, and that ID is given by the workflow over here. And this ID is currently just a random. As I said, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, depending upon where the iterator is while going through all those particular patterns. But as Lee said, this can be something. This should be something more unique, like a part of the UID or something like that. So the change needs to be made over in this workflow on line 71, and the workflow actually decides what this pattern ID will be. So, uh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, then I just wanted to point that out because there's still, even when you look at the catalog, you still have the same different numbering and it's still the same number in the markdown file. So, okay. Yeah, I agree with Kobe. We still need to look into it. And same thing for USC, trying to make this better. So,
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Uh, I'll collect responses based on that ID thing and make appropriate changes after I make the unpublished changes. The second thing I wanted to add was currently we have filters and designs over here in the catalog, but one of the other things that we also have are applications, and applications are like Kubernetes or Helm chart or your Docker Compose applications, and these are the easiest to import applications. So if you don't want to design by scratch, you can just import them, but we have no way to publish them right now. And I think if you can publish design on like in our internal system, the format that we use for applications is also design. And I think it's like more like a proposal that we should also add a publish, because it's quite straightforward. So just like we have publishing of designs, we should also have publishing of applications. Now it's completely on the user facing side how we would want to show it. So should that be like indistinguishable from designs, because internally they're saved as designs, so the same exact workflow can be used, and over here in the catalog you wouldn't be able to distinguish whether it came from a application or it came from a design, or a better use or a better UX can be that we actually show it somewhere that actually this came from an application, and when user clicks on that, they can download the original Helm chart or the original Kubernetes manifest from which it came from. So yeah, this is more like a proposal and an open consideration as to how we would want to, if we went ahead to publish applications, how would we want this particular catalog to look like for applications, and what should be the user experience around that.
Yeah,
anyone
questions for Ashish?
anyone has any suggestions they can make?
Don't do it.
Okay.
We're not trying to recreate Artifact Hub or another Helm chart repo. Like, let's add novel value. It would be my suggestion.
Okay.
I get how you arrive at that. That's you're correct in what you'd said. But if you think about other, well, Artifact Hub or some others escape me. There's a couple of other chart catalogs. I don't know. It's one of those things to like put a pin in and come back to after a V10. If the catalog gets enough traction and people are using it a lot, and they find it just that it's some of its features as a catalog are quite helpful, and they find that they're using it for designs and things, it might be that requests come through to be able to also publish Helm charts there. It's just that at this phase of where the catalog is and Meshery's use, it's like it wouldn't be a novel capability, and we would have to compete with other projects that already do something similar. So it's anyway, that's the logic that I would use.
Cool. So yeah, I've copied the suggestion in meeting minutes. So let's move to next item, which is by Harshit on final review of dark mode before merging it today. So Harshit, are you ready with your update?
Hello, yeah, I'm audible.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'm sharing my screen. So yeah, I mean, yeah, here's a dark mode, and I think final query was to resolve all the merge conflict, and I did that here. So yeah, I think we are done with all the previous issues, and yeah, we are ready to go now.
And conflicts resolved on the extensions as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So Abhi or anyone, do you have any final comments before we hit merge on this?
Yeah, I think we had good number of reviews for the dark mode, and if there is some remaining items left, then better it would be covered in a new PR, so that there is some amount of progress being done here. So I would go to I mean, I'm in favor of merging it right now, because yeah, we have reviewed it many times, and yeah, there is no such big red flag to halt this PR on. And if we halt it, like, we'll be just bumping the number of merge conflicts. So I don't think it is worth halting.
Yeah, cool. So let's merge then and we can follow up on the bugs or issues.
Yeah. One more
Sure.
thing I want to add here, that if we ever, I mean, if we'll move to the MUI 5, it is also, this technique will be also compatible with that also. I mean, yeah, so we can. I mean, we are comfortable also there.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, Abhi has merged, so that's cool. So thank you for your update, Harshit. So let's move to next item, which is by Lee on allow or deny selectors in mesh model component. So,
Yeah, is Uzair on? I know he was pretty hard at work earlier, but had to go get dinner. So yeah, I don't think he is. I asked because Uzair was part of a conversation earlier today on just an augmentation to mesh model. And so there is a section here. If you were to just adjust your zoom level, maybe not so much for me, but I suspect for others. There's a section here that has a schema for relationships. I think it's the relationship schema. So it's just, yeah, there you go. There was a discussion earlier about, all right, so just extremely briefly, Meshery as an infrastructure manager models the elements under management using mesh model, and different elements under management inside of mesh model are represented as objects, as resources. And each of these objects can be, well, some of them can have relationships with one another. And some of them can't or shouldn't. So if you think about an object on management being something like a Kubernetes service, a Kubernetes service might have a relationship with a Kubernetes deployment, and that relationship might be network-based, sort of a network-based relationship. So great, we need a way, mesh model provides a way of expressing that. The fact that there is a relationship that is allowed between Kubernetes service and Kubernetes deployment. Now, not all elements under management should be allowed to have a relationship, or does it make sense for them to? And so there are different types of relationships. The example that I just gave is a network-based relationship. So if we continue on that same example and we were to say, so should a Kubernetes service be allowed to have a network-based relationship with a Kubernetes secret? Probably not. Like secrets don't really, accept network requests, not like a deployment might. And so, that's just inappropriate. So today's discussion was to augment this model with the ability to to be a little more expressive in the current version of these schemas, which, by the way, these schemas and their current version, there's an open pull request that init them, that define their initial schema. So please go review that open PR. Actually, there's help needed on refining the schema. So this is part of that, is refining it. So Gaurav, if you were to scroll up just slightly, this particular schema is for the mesh model construct of a relationship. And so this schema says, here's how you can describe a relationship between one or more elements under management. And we're using Kubernetes constructs as an example. And we're using, in this particular case, it's a relationship of type network. And so under the selectors stanza, under that section, there are selectors to allow a relationship. And Gaurav, if you scroll down a little bit, there's now a section for allowing you to identify anti-selectors or deny selectors. So in this example I was using, it would be something like explicitly saying a Kubernetes service cannot have a network-based relationship with a Kubernetes secret. That expressiveness, the ability to blacklist a relationship, deny a relationship, wasn't present before. That was just a discussion happening earlier today. I wanted to surface that for you all to consider. The terminology that we had considered using was whitelist and blacklist. And we were sort of landed on allow and deny as hopefully equally meaningful denotations of when a relationship is allowed or when it's like explicitly disallowed. There's a number of scenarios in which you can imagine it's very helpful to be able to express the fact that one component, can have a relationship with another one, or it shall not, it can't. That just wasn't part of the schema before. So, yeah, so this needs to be added to the open PR, assuming that folks agree that that makes sense, that you could be more expressive. Yeah, that's the topic of, follow up in Slack or follow up on the PR with questions. Part of the help that's needed on the PR is really something that anybody here could do. And you know what, I'll point it out separately so that we can continue. I'll point out in Slack some areas that people could help on.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Lee. So if anyone wants to know more about mesh model and how we are defining relationship schemas, so you can give a brief read to this talk. I have shared the link in chat. So with that, let's move to next item, which is by Antoinette on decision to make MUI 5 v5 upgrade in .7 release.
All right, so for my part, we decided not to upgrade to move version 5 in UI itself, the UI directory, and also MeshMap itself. Since they completely, since MeshMap completely depend on Meshery itself, so any change that is made on UI will also have to be changed over in MeshMap. So we decided not to move forward at this point because there's a lot more work that needs to be done and requires more hands-on and more effort to make this happen. However, I still have an open issue. If anybody would like to add on to it, make suggestions, I would be changing it, updating it over time on this particular open issue to call to see if anybody would like to join in on the effort. But we will be starting this probably Lee, when is the specific date you want to do? I know you said you wanted to do it in next year, but when would you like to?
Yeah, there's a bunch of user experience, user UX designs that if we're going to put in the effort to rewrite UI, then we would at the same time want to include a bunch of UX changes, because there's a bunch that have been teed up that we haven't gotten to yet. And so the most appropriate place to start is with UX designs, going through those reviews, and then getting to uplift, upgrade and re-implementation. So like not this year, like literally not within 6 months, probably. Like it's just not, it's something that's well beyond the scope of what was planned for V070. Unless you all have friends who are talented and have time, that could change. But of the folks that are engaged right now, it's just not in the cards.
Yes. So to add on to that, another thing that we were able to accomplish, we were able to migrate provider UI to at least React 18, Net 13, and Movie version 5. So from that change that was made, I can give you an idea of what to look for in UI and also in MeshMap. So that's where we are on the front end part. Does anybody have any questions or would like to add on to it?
Yeah, brief question. So if we were to want to work on this particular PR, we would be working on the branch that you've got here in GitHub. Is that right?
Working on which one?
You have a PR that's open here on 6680. I mean, if we were wanting to contribute to that particular branch, then I'm assuming that we would be working on that branch.
Oh, so I have an open issue, but not a PR. We did have a PR, but I closed it because once we started, when Abhi and we started working on it, then it was at that point we had to stop. So but the issue here, I still have it open. And if you would like to add on to it, make changes to the note that I made, then yes, you can. But there is another branch that has started the effort, but it's too far behind where we can even merge that to the current branch that we're on. However, as I mentioned before, that is something that you can use for inspiration. It's redesigned into where you can see different layout. You have your typical dashboard, header, so on and so forth. But it also using the newest Redux toolkit, and also in between movie version 4 and version 5. But from where they are, you can easily change some of it to be completely, yes. The link that Lee just put, that's the one that you can take a look at. So it's already migrated to use Redux Toolkit. It's already like close to version 5. It just needs to, remove some of the legacy package, which is movie styles. They've already said that this particular package is not going to be supported in React 18. So once we make that jump to 13 and 18, we will have to leave that behind. But and even then, Net and Movie won't let you use it anyway. So but yes, that's something that you can look at. See if there's anything that you feel like that was already done that could be added to this current branch, but we'll have to see. But there's a lot, like what he said, create the mockup, to go over the designs effort. We also need to start working on converting some of the React class component to function component. I would suggest that right now, if you were to make any new component, make sure it's function and not class component. Unless you have to use class component, then that's fine. Just let us know, and then we'll go from there. But it would just make migration easier later when we get there. So Did that answer your question, Kobe? I think so. Okay. All right.
And yeah, with respect to that, I would like to add something. So we do have our docs of Redux. We are using Redux as a state management tool. So I'll just share a link of that in chat. And we also used to track the implemented UI items over here. So this can also be referenced. Yeah, thanks, Antoinette. So I don't think we have more questions. So let's move to next item, which is by Abhi.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I would start with asking for volunteers on this specific issue where we are talking about fixing SVG scaling for problems. And since it is like quite a big effort because there are a lot of folders and files in the Meshery UI itself. So I would like to take an approach where we would be taking one of the most important folders where these changes would need to be implemented first and foremost. And I would start with the Meshery Mesh interface. So what Meshery Mesh interface basically is having is that it is managing the RJSF forms, a design configurator. So this is the design configurator. It is managing all these pathways, all these areas, and especially RJSF forms. So since RJSF forms are used at two places, one is in this Meshery UI and another is in the MeshMap, which is an extension to Meshery. So yeah, we need to start with that thing. So the ask is like quite simple, and I would label it with a good first issue, or yeah, so something of that sort. So what we require is that the same, I mean, the exact effort has been made earlier also and these two commits describe that effort. And what it is required is for each SVG we use where we are importing it from the another library, where it can be material UI library or font or some, or maybe something else, but we usually use MUI icons and font awesome icons. Yeah. So in these two cases, like whenever we are using any SVG from any external library, so we would have to be specifying a height and width prop just to get rid of all the scaling problem that we are facing right now. Right. So as I said, like these 15 files has already been covered with the, I mean, the required changes. And I would like to ask for volunteers to, do the same changes, like kind of, yeah, it will be a good opportunity for you to actually dive deep into one of the most important code base we think inside the Meshery UI. So here is the, yeah, so I just opened the commit, I think. So yeah, so no, sorry. So this is the file where most common icon height and width properties are listed down. So for example, small icons are given height 20 by 20, and so as medium icon are given 24 by 24. So based on what's the requirement of the UI and comparing with, I mean, what's basically based on the requirement of the UI, you'll have to choose between the four sizes and basically use it. So using this central interface will allow us to consistently provide height and width prop to all the SVGs that we use, and thereby we'll be getting rid of most of the problems related to SVG scaling. So that was a minor ask, and yeah, I think that's it. So if someone is interested in doing it, so they can follow up on Slack or in the chat, or just talk to it right now.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi. So moving on to next item, which is like for me. So I also have a similar topic. So based on your request to update to use the new SVG system in mesh model, so I like merged a PR. I created a PR and merged the PR using the new SVG system in RJSF. So I followed the same approach and used the icon medium, but that was looking a bit bigger. So I switched back to icon small on RJSF. So if we take a quick look at the file changes, so I have only edited the custom fields for RJSF that are in Meshery interface. So some of the files are done and the rest of the files can be updated as in your new issue. Yeah, so any comment, Abhi, on that?
No, I think
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
pretty
fine.
straightforward. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, next up, I just want to ask about the failing Cypress integration test. So it's with it's with respect to the next upgrade, I think. So are we tracking this request anyway?
I think we were talking about it in one of the Slack conversation in Meshery UI channel. So I don't know where it went at that time, but yeah, we somehow lost the context. So yeah, we need to create a specific issue for it, and that needs to be worked on promptly.
Yeah, okay, I'll create one issue and then we can do a follow-up on that.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Yeah, so let's move to next item, which is by Uzair, but I don't think Uzair is on the call with us today. So we have Ayush with two topics.
So, I'll sorry to interrupt. I'll cover Uzair's topic for him since he's not here. And that's just to dovetail a little bit off of what we've been discussing around publishing content into the catalog, which, by the way, there is a visual workflow inside of Meshery's architecture deck that outlines how it is that content is published. The content publishing flow was originally to be done. Well, it was originally done by people editing Meshery.io and adding their designs there. It's that's okay. It's not quite convenient. It makes for everyone. It makes people go to do a PR and have reviews involved. And we desire for a more dynamic system in which people can not only consume from the catalog programmatically within their Meshery server, but also that they could publish programmatically. And to facilitate that publishing, we really need to know. We really need to know who's publishing and have a link back to the individual or the entity that has published content. Eventually, content will be classified as like community supported by a particular individual or a particular organization. If you think about Docker Hub or other hubs, this is just pretty commonplace stuff. If you have a catalog full of items, there needs to be a bunch of metadata around those items. Who published it, where it came from, are they supporting it, what version is it at, what technology does it apply to, what versions of those technologies is it compatible with, and so on. We have a lot of that information covered in Meshery server today. Not all of that is yet exposed into the catalog and needs to be. Meshery, the remote provider, which we referred to as Meshery Cloud, needs to be involved to provide identity. So if a requirement of the catalog is to ensure that we understand where this content is coming from, that people can get credit for their content, that people can support their content or be contacted about it or refer to theirs, well, that has to need to have identity associated, and identity as it is built into Mesh, as it is not built into Meshery server today, needs to come from a remote provider. That process of curating needs to be involved as well, so people don't publish swear words or other nonsense that doesn't make sense into the catalog. And so that's a little bit of background for some of the questions that you all are asking in Slack and other places. A lot of this is written down, by the way, in the extensive list of design specs that are in the community drive. Uzair's particular topic had to deal with use of 3 different states for a particular design if it was private and owned by and created by a particular individual, they have the choice of moving that from private to a public piece of content. As they do that, it'll go through these workflows that we've been talking about. And so trying to build towards some of the things that Ashish was mentioning earlier. Uzair was just making some changes around those states: private, public, published. And so just kind of he's been participating in helping move that forward. There is, I feel, an LFX internship probably coming on for the catalog itself. It has been the subject of an internship previously. I meant to put LFX internships as a topic for today, as well as GSOC, because we're going to go ahead and open up a number of them well, as soon as we can. And one of them will probably be on this topic. Yeah, anyway, that's about it.
Yeah, cool. That's great. Thank you, Lee, for giving an update on public catalog. So next up we have Ayush on improving Meshery CTL and logs for registering workloads. So Ayush would like to share your screen. Do we have Ayush on the call? Yep, we do. Ayush, you there?
Yeah, and so does Ashish or Antoinette, do either of the two of you want to represent? Well, maybe after, if Alberto has an update today, we should probably let him go, since he also has open PRs on adapters. But if not, if that puts Alberto on the spot, then maybe Ashish or Antoinette, you could speak on behalf of Ayush, who's maybe not within earshot of his speaker. Alberto, do you want to give an update on your progress with the Meshery adapters?
Sure, yeah. I have
Yeah.
some PRs open. I think there's like 4 or 5 open. One for app mesh, other for Nginx one, and I don't remember the other 3. But yeah, I'm still waiting for like more comments regarding those if I need to do any changes. And regarding the other thing, the ARM issue that I've been like investigating. I mean, just a heads up, I'm going to put that on pause for a little bit. I'm going to be like traveling, so I won't be able to make any updates there. So yeah, just heads up.
Yeah, nice. But about will you be out for about a week or?
Yeah, just a week.
Yep. Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah. By the way, of the latest progress that you've made on ARM compatibility, remind me again the crux of the challenge that was coming down to. Was part of that involvement of WRK2, or was it a different?
No, it's mainly due to the glibc container that we are like putting everything at the end. Yeah, I'm like searching for a way of like including and compiling glibc libraries on ARM. I've been making some tests on ARM machine that I have. But yeah, I'm still like looking into it because it's I have to build a APK package for Alpine, and I have to do a bunch of things in order to make it work. The available options are not there. I mean, as far as I could like find, there is no like out of the box solution for glibc on ARM yet. Well, some people are asking for it, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. as a refresher, Ashish, glibc is the requirement for, or is necessary for Meshery servers use of SQLite. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now might be an appropriate time to remind some of us about the efforts that you've put into Meshery servers support of an alternative database other than SQLite.
Yeah, so there is an open PR in Meshery which was made a few months ago, but that was put on hold due to some other reasons. And that pull request was to have Postgres as an alternative. So we would be later migrating completely over to the Postgres because as we have things like workflow engine coming on, which the like one of the workflow engine is temporal, and temporal uses Postgres. So we would so using an external database actually solves a bunch of these issues. So since all the database related stuff would be handled by Postgres container, we don't need to have all these internal dependencies with some external shared objects like we have in case of SQLite right now. So yeah, and because of that reason, the other issue of ARM was put on hold 4 months ago because we thought at that point that the Postgres PR would land, and once it lands, it would make the previous PR. But the issue obsolete. There would be ARM compatibility, but yeah, but it currently we are at the same page we were like at that time as well to find the appropriate dependencies. And as Alberto pointed out that yeah, it's kind of a struggle to find the accurate image, and he has created his own image as well, but there are also some dependencies are missing. So to find the exact dependencies, so even in glibc there are a bunch of other dependencies as well, like even under that umbrella. So to find the exact dependencies that would not cause that would allow us to run the Meshery binary for ARM without any issues is kind of a challenge right now. So yeah.
So yeah,
Am I audible?
yeah, you are, Ayush.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why I was not able to share my screen.
Yeah, no issues. Would you like to quickly go over?
Yeah. So, so just two small issues. This one is for improving the logs error messages for the Meshery CTL pattern apply command. So, I have improved some messages here. So, like this, you can see error store trap could not create request, or this one. So these are pretty basic, but the problem I'm having here is some tests are failing, which I can't figure out. This Golang test, which are type name will be used as meshmodel summary challenge. So if you could give some insight on this, like why is this failing?
Antoinette gave some feedback in the chat, actually.
Oh,
Yes, I provided the update on what you can do to fix that. So the Golang doesn't like the long line. Well, I'm sorry. We have a rule to check for the long line to be at 960, and the long line is I think 1170 or something. And so I checked the project, look at where it was calling it from, and so it's on that particular file where it will complain about the FEG file. So once you just make the changes and then make it shorter, that should take care of that issue. Now for this one, the type name, I need to look at that one. Ashish, was there something changed in the mesh model?
Okay. Yeah, this might have been introduced by I think this mesh model summary channel, this channel was added in Pranav's PR when where we have the summary of all the mesh model components shown, and this lint issue might have been introduced there. So I'll take a look at this and I'll create a PR to fix this.
Yeah, thanks. So it's not related to my pull request, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think if there's any, if you can give any feedback on this, and then you can give here. I've already requested a review from Aditya. So now moving on to my second item, just added some log messages in the Nginx SM adapter in these functions, like registering static workloads with Meshery server and successfully registered the static components with Meshery server, and then change this line at the bottom from successfully registered latest service mesh components with Meshery server to successfully registered latest workload components for version. This because I find I went through the code base for some other adapters and I found it like it was this instead of this, and this also like looks more bit appropriate. So any feedback on this?
I don't think workload components is necessarily the best thing. Uh, we used to use the word workload to reference the thing when we had an open when we were using the OM model. In the new mesh model, we use components. Usually, mesh model has components and relationships. So in here, I think successfully registered latest mesh model components would be the correct, like the more appropriate term. Do you have any suggestions over here?
Goodness, I'm just components maybe is the, I don't know if that's what you just said, but instead of, yeah, if you just drop workload and say components, then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will change this from to mesh model components.
You know what? Or you could do what I just said, which is just drop workload and leave components, and then we won't have to talk about it again. Because yeah, you just it's a common thing that a lot of engineers fall into, which is over engineering, like too much detail, too much, like you get yourself out of trouble by not being specific. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So like this is having two errors. So this file, this Golang CLint error as already pointed out by Antoinette due to this line in the config.go. But I have already opened a separate pull request to externalize the config file, which moves all this data into a new modeled metadata.json file. So, and for those that these tests are passing Golang CLint, so I don't think I need to change anything here or in this file, because these code are already being moved to a separate file. So I'm not changing this. So this will keep showing the test being failing for this issue.
So yeah, hey Ayush, sorry to interrupt. So yeah, so we are over time. So yeah, let's put this item and discuss it in Slack, if you would.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you for your update, Ayush. It was a good one. So we are 3 minutes over today, and with that, I think we are good to wrap. And yeah, there is a new promo video posted on play.meshery.io. Do go and take a look. I'll just paste a quick link in chat. So thank you all for joining today's Meshery Dev call. We'll meet you next week, same time. Bye all.
Bye bye.
Well, thank you, Gaurav. See you guys.